Hi, welcome back to the Counterfeit Emotions podcast. I'm Curtis and I'm an emotionologist. Thanks for joining me on the journey to find peace, joy, and experience all of our emotions together in a way that is healthy and benefits us. Today, we're going to talk about one of the most powerful forces in the universe, and that's hope. Hope truly is an amazing force. Hope creates cities. Hope creates love. Hope is the basis for so many aspects of life. And we're going to talk today about hope versus expectation because it's easy to understand the opposite emotion of hope. That's despair. I'm sure that you can think of a time in your life where you felt despair, where you felt like there was no positive future, that there was nothing worth striving for. You probably felt that in times of trauma, in times of loss, in times of death. Despair is also a very powerful emotion, but hope is more powerful. Hope can, Hope is basically the ladder that you climb out of the pit called despair. And hope is what brings light back into our lives when we feel that. And it's easy to understand that despair is the opposite emotion of hope. But what about the counterfeit emotion of hope? What is the counterfeit to this powerful, beautiful, light filled emotion? What is the counterfeit of that? The counterfeit is expectation. And let's dive in to how expectation counterfeits hope. Because if you look at hope, hope is a desire for a positive future plus optimism plus surrender. That's the formula of hope. It's desired future, desired positive future, optimism plus surrender. Surrender is the key part. Now let's look at the formula of what are the building blocks of expectation. The building blocks of expectation is a desire for a positive future plus attachment to the outcome of that desire plus control. The way expectation counterfeits hope is because they both start with desired outcome, a desire for a positive outcome. That's true in hope, that's true in expectation. But then it starts to change as the formula continues. Again, with hope, the formula is the desire for the positive outcome plus optimism plus surrender. With expectation, you start with the same way, desired outcome, desired positive outcome, but this is where it changes, plus attachment to that outcome plus control. Might as well sprinkle a little fear on top of that, which is different than the optimism of hope. And if you look at what hope really means, going back to the etymology of the word, if you look at it from the late Old English, hopa, it means confidence in the future. Now think about that. That's amazing. It means confidence in the future. If you go back even further into Old English, it actually stems from hopian, which means confidence in God regardless of the outcome. How beautiful is that? C.S. Lewis, one of my favorite authors, he said that if we aim for heaven, we get the earth thrown in. If we aim for earth, we get neither. What he's saying is that as we see a bright future, a bright hope, as we see that bright hope, and we shoot for that. We aim for a beautiful future that takes the old English of Hopian and says that it's confidence in God regardless of the outcome. When we do that, then we can surrender. We can say, I'm going to step into my hope. And and hope is so powerful because hope is what gets us out of bed in the morning. Hope is what gets an athlete to the starting line. Hope is swiping right in that dating app. Hope is such a powerful emotion because it is what drives us to positive change. And when you look at expectation does such a great job of counterfeiting that hope. And I want to read a couple quotes here. The first says, it's by William Shakespeare. He says, expectation is the root of all heartache. And then if we advance forward to a more modern day author, Brandon Sanderson says, expectations were like fine pottery. The harder you held them, the more likely they were to crack. Wow. What an amazing quote. And as I look at people with hope, one of those is Michael J. Fox. And he said, my happiness grows in direct proportion to my acceptance and in inverse proportion to my expectations. Expectation is the bullet train to disappointment. You want to be disappointed? Set up some expectations. And here's the magical part about hope. Hope can never be disappointed. Take a minute to think about that. Hope can never be disappointed. Expectation is the bullet train to disappointment. You can get there faster through unmet expectations than you can through anything else. And yet, hope, that authentic emotion, doesn't have the ability to be disappointed. And a great way to think of this is planting seeds. You think about a great big open field and you see the dirt, it looks rich and it looks like it's fertile. And you plant seeds with the hope that you're going to be able to reap a harvest someday. Expectation says every single seed you put in the soil is going to have to produce that exact amount. And you count every single one. And if you plant 100 seeds, expectation says you have to, or you should get 100 plants. Hope says that it may all fail. Everything may fail, but I still have a belief that it may succeed. And so to me, it's worth it. But with that expectation, if every single plant doesn't pop up and produce exactly the harvest that you're looking for, then all of a sudden there's disappointment. And it could be literally 99 of the 100 that sprout and grow and produce the fruit that you're looking for. But because it wasn't 100, you're going to be disappointed. Because that expectation wasn't met, you're going to be disappointed. With hope, you plant 100. And instead of the disappointment, you find joy in the 88 that popped up and produced these amazing vegetables or fruit or whatever you planted. Hope can't be disappointed. And just by saying that, spend just 2 seconds thinking about how that feels when I say hope can't be disappointed. Does that ring true? Does that feel like it's full of light when I say that? Hope truly is one of the most powerful and transformative forces in the universe. Hope creates things that are innovative. Hope goes to the next level. Hope climbs the next summit. Hope is what wins Super Bowls. Hope is what gets the mountain climber to the very peak. That's hope. And if we look at what hope is made of, what are the pieces and parts of hope? The number one part of hope is a belief in the future or confidence in the future. And very specifically, confidence in a future that you want, a future that has a goal, a future that you manifest. That is hope. Hope is the basis of manifestation. Hope is the basis of you creating a world that you want. That's hope. So the first piece of hope is that goal or being able to see that future. And this is really important because the future is critical. And they've actually done a study on this of why Super Bowl teams win. And the one factor above anything else was the belief that they could. The belief that they could, or the hope that they could. They could actually see it in their minds. If you took all the other factors and put them together, and they being equal, and then one team had hope and one team just had a wish or an expectation, every time the team with hope is going to win. That's what gets us to the starting line. That's what gets every entrepreneur to file a business license with the state. That's what is driving us to become more, because we have that confidence in the future. And going one step above or one step more transcendent, we have confidence in our Creator, confidence in God, regardless of the outcome. And that peace, the regardless of the outcome, that's the surrender. So going back to the pieces and parts of hope, hope starts with a goal, a vision, being able to see in your mind a positive future. Then hope also sees the pathway to get to that future. So it's not just, oh, I want $1 million. Cool. I'm going to sit on the couch and I expect $1 million. That's entitlement. That's expectation. But hope says, I see a goal and I see a pathway to get to that goal. And then it also says, I have the power inside me to be able to step on that pathway, to be able to climb that mountain, to be able to finally end up at the vision I saw in my head, which is to stand on the summit. That's what hope is. Expectation, it's counterfeit, says, nope, it's all about the shoulds. I'm going to put those in quotes. It's all about the shoulds. Expectation is just a series of should. Well, this should happen. I deserve this to happen. This should or shouldn't. And there's my expectation, which is, again, the bullet train to disappointment. Now, let's break down in the criteria of understanding an authentic emotion versus counterfeit emotion. Let's break both of these down. Let's start with hope. And again, if this is your first episode, there's 4 criteria to know if any emotion is authentic or if it's counterfeit. Every authentic emotion connects. Every counterfeit emotion disconnects. So that's the first criteria. Second criteria is direction. Where does this emotion take me? The third criteria is motivation. And this one's deep in this dyad of emotions. And the fourth is valuation. So let's start with connection. What does hope do as far as connection? Well, hope connects me with a bright future. Hope connects me with my creator, with God, because I believe that the outcome is going to be okay regardless. Hope connects me with others. Hope is infectious. Have you ever been around anyone that has so much hope? And I'm not just talking about this toxic positivity, everything is, has a beautiful silver lining around it. No, what I'm talking about is someone that has true hope. It's an excitement, but at the same time, it's almost a stillness inside of them. If you ever been around that person, it's hard not to hope. It's hard not to be with someone like that and not feel their excitement for the future, their confidence in the future. Hope is infectious. It connects us to others. And hope connects us to truth. Expectation is disconnecting. Expectation doesn't connect us to truth. Expectation says, I'm going to have this outcome. I should have this outcome no matter what. I should have this outcome, regardless of the truth, regardless of when you're planting the seeds, if there's a frost, or if there's not enough rain or too much rain. The truth, when we connect to that, we have hope because we can see that pathway. Expectation doesn't. It doesn't connect us to truth. Expectation also doesn't connect us to others. When we have expectation, all of a sudden, others become nothing more than cogs in a machine. They become objects to achieve what we should have in our future. Hope says the future is going to be okay for me and it's going to be okay for you because of that confidence in the future, that confidence in God, that confidence in our Maker to say, regardless of the outcome, it's going to be okay. And of course, it connects us to God. And most of all, hope connects us to our divine center. Hope connects us to what's inside, that ability, that potential. Because remember the three elements, the goal, or the future vision, the pathway, and then finally, the third one is the power within us to achieve or to get on the pathway. So that last element of the power that we have inside of us, that's what connects us to our true divine self. That's what hope does. Expectation does the exact opposite. It disconnects us from all of those. Moving on to the second criteria of understanding whether an emotion is authentic or counterfeit is direction. Every authentic emotion moves us forward, upward, or brings us together. Every counterfeit emotion just circles back to itself. So let's think about how this applies to hope and expectation. Hope absolutely takes us into a bright future. It's moving us forward. It's moving us upward. But it also does it where that infectious nature of hope says, hey, I can have hope and you can have hope too. Let's both have hope. Let's both enjoy seeing that vision in our head, understanding the pathway. And the pathway doesn't mean it's going to be easy just because we see it. No, in fact, it's probably going to be difficult. But having hope in that journey, that's one of the powerful aspects of this emotion, is the journey is going to take us up, and climbing, it's hard. If you've done the stair stepper at the gym, if you've been out in the mountains, those glutes, those quads, those calves, like it takes work. But being able to see from where I'm at today to this bright vision in my head, that's the pathway. And then saying, I have the power to tap into that. I have the power to start my steps up that path. That's the direction of hope. The direction of expectation is expectation just leads back to itself. Expectation is part of the victim mentality. If you want to be a victim, have all the shoulds and the shouldn'ts. Have the entitlement. Say that I should be entitled to this particular outcome, regardless of the truth, regardless of nature, regardless of this earth that we live on. It doesn't matter. I should have this. That's what expectation does. And it just circles back to itself saying, well, I expect this and I expect this. And that control of not being able to surrender to whatever outcome, surrender to truth, surrender to life, surrender to God. Without that, expectation just circles back to itself and fuels more expectation. So the first is connection, second is direction, the third is motivation. What is the motivation behind this emotion? Every authentic emotion is motivated by two meta emotions or two base emotions. The first is love. The second is surrender. You think about that with hope. Hope says, I love me enough to get on the pathway. I believe in me enough to know that I have power to get on the pathway, and that God loves me enough to be able to say there is a bright future. May not be exactly what you're looking for, but there is a bright future in store. Expectation. Expectation is a counterfeit emotion, which is always based in two base emotions: fear and control. That's exactly what expectation is. Expectation is entitlement wrapped in fear and control. And control says it has to be this way no matter what. No matter if that seed I planted was dead when I planted it originally, no matter if I didn't put it deep enough into the soil, or if I put it too deep into the soil, that I expect it to grow no matter what. And it's so easy to see how expectation counterfeits hope in that way, because we still think the plant is going to grow. We still have this desire for a positive outcome, but that attachment and that control, those are at the heart of expectation. Finally, the last criteria, the fourth criteria, is valuation. What does this emotion value me at? What does it value you at? Well, with hope, it says I'm of divine worth because God is looking out for me. My maker, my creator is looking out for me. And no matter the outcome, I can have hope because I know he's watching. I know he cares enough about me that I can have hope, that I have enough divine worth, that I have that inherently inside me, enough that God's watching and providing an experience on this earth perfectly custom tailored just for me. That's hope. When it values me as being divine, as being watched over by God, even in the pain, even in the trials, even in the hard pieces of life, hope does that. Well, the valuation of expectation is that, well, I expect this to happen. And if it doesn't, well, then I'm going to be disappointed because this is all me. And I'm not tapping into the eternal. I'm not tapping into heaven. I'm just expecting this to happen. I'm entitled to have it happen. And the valuation says, I'm really not worth it because my entire worth is based on whether or not 100 of the seeds I planted turn into 100 plants. That my value is attached to that outcome. That's not divine. That's not divine worth at all. In fact, that's the opposite. That's taking our worth and trying to put it into a certain outcome, whether or not you make the team, whether or not your business succeeds, whether or not you have happy kids, whether or not all of those expectations, they remove our worth, or they try to remove our worth and put it in an outcome, and says, if you don't hit 100 of those 100, then you are not worth it. Actually, you're not worth anything. That you didn't hit that. You didn't hit the sales goal. You didn't hit or you didn't get the job. You didn't do whatever you said you were going to do. And because of that, you're not of worth. Do you see how expectation takes our worth and says, you're actually worthless? And you're worth less, because check out your neighbor. Your neighbor got 100 out of 100. We make up these stories. We don't know if he planted 100 or 200, but all of a sudden we see his crop and we say, oh, well, I guess I'm not worth as much as him. So expectation says, number one, we're worthless, or we're starting at zero. But it also says we're worth less, because his crop was bigger than mine, then I'm worth less. Or because I missed it by one, I'm worth less. Or because I'm not tall enough, or handsome enough, or strong enough, or rich enough, or any enoughs, then I'm worth less. And that's really what happens with expectation, is we attach our identity, we attach our worth to that outcome. And then we try and control it for everything we're worth, and it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. A little while ago, I had the opportunity to speak up at the state penitentiary. And in Utah, they have done something so unique. I don't know that it's in any other prison in the country. They allowed the inmates to create a personal development program called SOLID. And I love the acronym SOLID, because SOLID stands for successful. That's the S. It starts with successful. Successful offenders learning individual development. And this is an inmate-led program done by inmates for inmates. And the vision of the warden and the prison staff is just phenomenal, that they would allow them to do this. And they learn business skills, personal development skills, language skills. They teach them to go through this program so that when or if, and I do say or if, they get out, that they'll have a second chance at life. Talk about hope. And I was actually able to participate in one of the ceremonies, the award ceremonies. And I was standing off to the side, and there was a couple of the inmates up front, and they they pulled out these certificates, and they started calling names. And I looked through the crowd of inmates that were sitting there, and there was quite a few that were participating actively in this program. And closest to me, right on the end chair, was a guy with a shaved head. And on both sides of his head, he had these devil horns tattooed to his skull. And then right in back, he had a swastika. And his hands were all tatted up. He looked like a rough character. This isn't somebody you'd want to meet in a back alley. And as they called his name, I saw tears roll down his eyes. From the outside, you think this is one mean, nasty guy. But I saw hope in him. I saw tears roll down his eyes, and this may have been the first time that he felt hope, the first time that he was told he was worth something, the first time he was loved. And he stood up just beaming. And I didn't see the tattoos anymore. I didn't see the rough, gruff guy anymore. His smile illuminated the room. And the joy that I saw in his heart and the joy that I saw roll down his eyes was so beautiful. It was so full of hope. That's the power of hope. Some of these inmates are on a life sentence without parole. And yet, they continue to go to the solid program. They continue to do this over and over again because they believe in a bright future. And they see a pathway to a different version of themselves that they didn't see before. And then the key is they see the power within them to get on the pathway. And that day, this particular inmate held up the certificate that said, I'm worth something. Held up the certificate that said, I'm loved. Held up the certificate that said, there's hope in my life. That's the power of hope. And if we're to have the conversation and sit down, I'm pretty sure expectation and that victim mentality was why he was in there in the first place. And that was replaced. That was replaced by hope. Hope says something could work out. Expectation says something should work out. And hope is truly one of the most powerful forces in the universe because hope can move mountains. Hope can change the way we see our future and the way our future manifests. Hope is one of the most beautiful emotions you'll experience because it taps into the power within yourself. And hope comes with peace. That second definition of the Old English, that hope is confidence in God regardless of the outcome. That's where we find peace. When we truly surrender, we surrender our fears, we surrender control, we surrender all of the things that keep us in that fear. That's where we find hope. And this week, I hope that you have an amazing week full of peace, because peace is the one emotion that can't be counterfeited. It's our guiding star. It's that navigation. It's our compass. To, like C.S. Lewis said, when we shoot for heaven, we get the earth too. Tap into that hope that will give you peace and let go of all the rest. Thanks, and until next week,